Yeah.
Hello and good evening and welcome to our second event in the series 30 years of Slovenian statehood experiences and visions. The event that we started earlier this year to celebrate our country's achievements and creating new visions for the future. Tonight's debate will focus on efforts to build a resilient nation and on lessons learned. We will look at the range of challenges we are confronted with and how their continuous occurrence is becoming new normal and how is testing our limits of coping capacities of our states and coping capacities of our institutions. We shall address this with our two main speakers based in Slovenia and the United Kingdom respectively, each with their unique experience and future vision. I will ask each of them to speak approximately 7 minutes, and then I will open the floor for the debate, for your questions and comments, and the discussion. I have to say we are on the record. This session is being recorded, and you can also follow us on our Facebook page. If you will have a question later on, please use the chat button, write your name and I will call you. You will ask a question or just write the question and I will read it for you. As we are respectful of your time, we will conclude this session in 1 hour. So without any further ado, our first speaker tonight is my colleague, Ambassador Jelko Kacin. Jelko is a state secretary in the office of Prime Minister, acting as national logistics coordinator for the mass vaccination campaign against COVID-19. But Jelko was also a minister in the past during Slovenian independence war. He was a minister for information and later on Minister of Defense. He was elected twice in the National Parliament, National Assembly, and served both times as a chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. As he was a member of Slovenian delegation to PACE and one of the first Slovenian observers in the European Parliament, also member of the Convention on Future of Europe. As an elected member of European Parliament, he sat on several committees, including Committee on Foreign Relations, where he was extremely active on the Western Balkan affairs. Between 2015 and 19, Jelko served as ambassador, permanent representative of Slovenia to NATO. At the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in the spring 2020, Jelko was appointed official spokesman of the Slovenian government. So I will ask him if he can share with us some thoughts and experiences from 30 years ago when Slovenia got its independence and when we start building our institutions. Jelko, what were the main challenges then and how different they are now? How we are prepared for the crisis like the recent one that we are still facing with? Was it for us an asset to be a member of the European Union in these circumstances, in the circumstances of the crisis, and what have we learned in this past year? So Jelko, over to you, and we are listening.
Good evening, Simona and Bojana and all the other participants. Dober večer. It is a pleasure for me to be your guest. What can I answer on a very general question? The Socialist Republic of Slovenia, federal unit of the Yugoslav Socialist Federation, was the most economically developed and the most pro-Western republic in every sense, not just economically. It was also the most nationally homogeneous republic. In the 80s, Yugoslavia was no longer able to implement needed crucial political and economic reforms. The economic crisis, especially the financial crisis with hyperinflation, made the political climate even worse. Yugoslavia's most obsolete structure, the Yugoslav National Army, which also largely controlled and monitored the ruling Communist Party at the federal level, felt under real threat in these circumstances. As the ideological glue that would bind and enable a political agreement for the modernization and survival of the federation no longer existed. The unresolved national question, in particular regarding the situation of the Albanians in Kosovo, who had justified reasons to demand more autonomy and the status of a republic, brought the populist and demagogue Slobodan Milosevic to power in Serbia, the largest federal republic. He turned the wheel of history backwards and threatened the federation. He implemented the Serbian national question with the program of Greater Serbia, which would dominate Yugoslavia by political destabilizing the other republics and changing the internal borders between the republics, all at the expense of other nations and republics. Milosevic's brutal policies spread a growing fear of the future in Yugoslavia. The Serbian political embargo on Slovenian products, which was implemented in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro too, was the last straw. Slovenia and its party was too weak to implement the necessary reforms in Yugoslavia at that time, and therefore had to join the democratic forces which saw their future outside Yugoslavia, what means independence of Slovenia, as the only possible safe solution. During the political thaw after the long Cold War in the democratic wave that lifted and united Europe, and with the crisis of the USSR, which was collapsing, a widespread realization dawned in Slovenia that even Yugoslavia, Milosevic in power, could not survive. It was necessary to avoid internal conflict in the federation at all costs and in time. It was paramount to remove the Slovenian territory, our population and our economy from the Yugoslav cauldron. The first democratically elected government gained all the necessary legitimacy and extremely broad support in the referendum, not only to declare, but also to assert, secure, and defend independence. We had to prepare, equip, train, and communicate effectively with the domestic and foreign public, many of whom knew very little or even nothing about Slovenia, our assessments, goals, and expectations. Because we had the knowledge and managed to achieve all of this, even military aggression could not shake the confidence of the people. People were not intimidated. On the contrary, we fought even more resolutely for our goals. Military, we stopped and blocked the Yugoslav National Army politically. We thwarted it and defeated it in the media, and with the help of the European community, we forced it to negotiate a political compromise. I'm proud of both our collective and my own achievements at the time. In just a few days, we became a recognized and respected entity of Europe's future, even though Belgrade has deemed us as a subject to be disciplined, punished, broken, and defeated as a reminder to all others and to foil similar aspirations elsewhere. Before that, however, no one really had time for Slovenian independence because the West, fearing the breakup of the USSR and a further nuclear crisis, actively opposed the breakup of Yugoslavia. The West feared that the breakup of Yugoslavia would also lead to the uncontrolled collapse of the USSR. We did not have many friends, and the political assessment of the situation in Yugoslavia in the West were too heavily influenced by the reports of their diplomats from Belgrade, where they were not familiar with the developments in the republics and had even less understanding about their historical significance. We counted on the understanding and help of Austria and the Federal Republic of Germany, and especially of the state of Bavaria. However, it was the former first German intelligence officer, Foreign Minister Hans-Dieter Genscher, who first understood the wider significance of Slovenia's and Croats' independence and supported us firmly. From being a part of the problem, as the West initially saw it, we quickly became a part of the solution and an example to others. It was clear to everyone that Slovenia, as an export-oriented economy, had to integrate into the European economy and replace the lost markets of Yugoslavia and the East. After the Yugoslav National Army's attack on Slovenia and the successful defense of independence, and especially after the years-long Yugoslav wars, we quickly came to the realization that Slovenia's security could only be ensured within the framework of the collective security of NATO. Slovenia was not invited to join NATO in 1997 in the first wave. It was not about its possible lack of readiness, but about the political dispute between the largest and very strong European ally over the command structure of the alliance, which unfortunately pushed Slovenia out of the first round of enlargement and caused great long-term collateral damage. Based on these findings, Slovenia undertook the process of approximation and integration into the EU with even greater enthusiasm. I claim with all responsibility that Slovenia, as a NATO member, would have entered the 2008 global financial crisis with much greater resilience, because its membership in the alliance would have strengthened democracy in Slovenia, accelerated reforms, and in particular, accelerated the privatization of the economy in good time. As it was, Slovenia experienced the financial crisis in the most sensitive phase of privatization, when the banking sector was threatened due to a drastic decline in financial flows, which led to many companies going bankrupt. It was the great financial crisis that spread the realization that the EU and wider Europe were not sufficiently resilient to imported crises. It made us aware that we also need to develop a common financial policy and operational financial resolution tools and mechanisms. 10 years earlier, looking to the Russian financial crisis, the world proved that it could act quickly and effectively. I was in Moscow at the beginning and at the end of the week of the deepest crisis. With the help of extremely rapid global financial aid, the Russian ruble picked up, a new government was formed, the crisis was overcome, all within 1 week. No one could afford a new deep crisis in Russia because everyone was aware of the consequences for global stability and economies in Europe and beyond. Slovenia was also the only new member state to decide on joining NATO in a referendum in 2003, achieving the required two-thirds support. The big bang caused by the enlargement of the EU and NATO in 2004 was a historic turning point for all, a remarkable achievement for Europe and its role and position in the world, as well as for the greater and much needed self-confidence, all-around ambitions and resilience. The financial crisis 4 years later, however, showed how quickly we forget everything we already knew. We are increasingly codependent on a global scale. Unfortunately, this means that we are even more vulnerable and far from being resilient enough. This is especially true when it comes to small countries and their economies. The challenges of today are now new and they are different. The pandemic has brought many health crises and profound social consequences, and the need to effectively and safely protect the most vulnerable groups in the face of a virus for which there was no knowledge, vaccines or medications when it reached Europe. Healthcare systems and pharmaceutical industry were not ready for the incursion of the virus, and nor were countries. Air transport and tourism was suspended almost completely. Countries closed their borders, and wider economic consequences of lockdowns affected all countries and all economies. We really were not prepared for the incursion of the virus, let alone resilient enough. We are aware of our vulnerability and are still working hard to achieve the much needed vaccination coverage as soon as possible, so that patients with severe COVID-19 do not fill up our hospitals and disable our own and other healthcare systems. I'm one of Slovenia's 2 members of the steering board for vaccines, in which the EU member states and the European Commission coordinate the joint development, production, and purchase of vaccines. We are preparing common tools for dealing with mutated viruses in 2022 and 2023. Things are difficult. We are learning new things every day. All over the world, there is a shortage of active ingredients, production facilities, even vials. Deliveries are not regular enough, not timely, and not sufficient. There are still not enough vaccines, but at the end of this year, we will be in a much better position than we were at the end of last year when the vaccination began. This year, vaccination will be available to the whole population. Together, we have been able to do much more and much faster than any country could have done alone. Especially for smaller countries, the pandemic is an extremely large challenge that is very difficult to manage. We will increase our capacities and ensure sufficient vaccine production within the European Union, which will make us more self-sufficient, more resilient, more responsive, and faster. In its desire to stay healthy, the EU is working together and achieving more. Together, we can do more and we can do better. At the same time, we are well aware of the need of necessity to strengthen solidarity at the global level. Solidarity can be manifested above all in vaccination and vaccination coverage. The effective and timely solidarity with other continents in the pandemic is the only way to create a secure and resilient future on the global scale. Solidarity and sufficient vaccination coverage is a condition for the new normal. The COVAX mechanism for providing the necessary doses of vaccines will enable EU member states to deal with the virus and its mutations in the developed parts, in less developed parts of the world. But to do this, we need several different types of vaccines and protection for the youngest among us, and above all, enough doses of vaccines in real time. The current developments in India are just an additional reminder that we need to ensure the production of basis, active ingredients, and vaccines at home in the EU, in Europe. Only those who have the knowledge and ability to help themselves will have the knowledge and ability to help others as well. We are in the same boat. We need a clear and shared direction. We need efficient organization and better coordination. As the future is tomorrow's present, we need a clear vision of the future. We need a future that is safer, more predictable, and more resilient. At this time, I do not see a more important task for humanity than fighting the virus, developing and producing vaccines, responding to new mutations, and vaccinating the populations. That is my assessment. Thank you.
Jelko, thank you very much for your thoughts, and I cannot agree more that we need a predictable future, but it's also the future that is resilient and ready and built for our young generation. So our second speaker is exactly the representative of the younger generation, a generation that grew up in independent Slovenia. Ms. Bojana Selinšek is a prominent young leader living and working in the United Kingdom. She is a global partnership and project manager for artificial intelligent health innovations at Kacin Medical Technologies, where they develop deep learning solutions for early and accurate cancer detection and are recognized for their exemplary standards of clinical rigor and trials in frontier science of IA in healthcare. By securing grant funding and managing key projects and partnership, Bojana is bringing strategically important opportunities to accelerate the development, testing, and evolution of the most promising IA technologies. Prior to that, Bojana worked for several years in managing clinical trials at the Oxford University and the UCL. Bojana also leads and contributes to many projects and initiatives at the Association of Slovenians Educated Abroad, VTIS, including to exchange knowledge and best practices between Slovenians abroad and at home. As I have asked Jelko before, I will also ask Bojana to share some of her thoughts and experiences studying and working in the United Kingdom, and why actually leaving Slovenia. So Bojana, how COVID pandemic influenced and changed your life, if any, and how do you see young generation respond to the crisis? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities for you in all this? Bojana, over to you.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Embassy in London for this invitation. It is my pleasure to share my thoughts. It is a great experience, and maybe if I start at the beginning of my journey, a lot of young people are excited and like to experience whether the grass is greener on the other end. And I think the desire for me to go abroad evolved gradually. I'm curious by nature and very passionate learner. I have used Erasmus program, which is offered by the European Union, which was a great experience and determined basically my decision to go abroad afterwards. After living in the Netherlands and Oxford, I finally landed in London, where I've also met the ambassador. I have never worked in Slovenia professionally, so I will share my experiences and what keeps me abroad without direct comparisons with my home country. I love London. As you all know, it's a true cultural melting pot. It offers a lot of job opportunities. I can try out different things, but it also challenges me in ways that I've never expected before. I think as you have heard in the introduction, I'm involved in medical sector. I work for the artificial intelligence company, developing deep learning products to improve cancer detection. And this company, at this company, we have 18 nationalities in only 60-person startup. And we work across all continents. I think this environment really enables me to reflect on many different viewpoints. It challenges ways of my beliefs, working communications. It gives me a lot of healthy challenges that lead me to professional and personal growth, and in my opinion, also resilience. I also like other things like the can-do attitude, being a front runner in tackling certain challenges. And I also like that I can contribute meaningfully to the society, in this case, improving healthcare. So in terms of equality, diversity, and inclusion, I can also practice it directly when developing the AI. I truly believe that when developed well, we can ensure that every patient can receive equal treatment, no matter what race or background they are from. So in conclusion, I love London. It gives me a lot of professional and financial stability. But interestingly, all of this was slightly tested when the COVID pandemic started. It was shocking for everyone. And at that moment, I really must say, I was grateful to the embassy for organizing the repatriation flight, which enabled me to spend the first lockdown with my family in Slovenia. It made me realize more than ever that Slovenia means safe haven. For me, it's my home. And I think it showed also for many other Slovenians in the UK that they wish to move back home. I think COVID was for many a tipping point to make this decision. And I like to joke that for several, the repatriation flight was maybe a one-way ticket. So the experience of getting through pandemic really varies from person to person. I think for me, I've really closely connected with my family, which was a silver lining going through this pandemic. After this initial shock, I think I've adjusted relatively quickly. I think living abroad really equips you with ways of communication and staying socially close with your loved ones without being physically there. And I think this added me with certain capabilities to cope with COVID better, even though even I had to adjust a little bit to it. And for instance, we've seen many great examples, like even at VTIS association, we responded very quickly and we were nimble in ways of communicating. We connected much more globally as a community, which was really great to see. And I hope we can carry on with this trend. We became much more inclusive as well, which means a lot. And it's a great opportunity to use it now that we're going out of the pandemic, hopefully. So for the first time, I realized that this cooperation and inclusivity really is important, and not only between generations, but also through geographies. And I think even though change will happen gradually, and we are seeing now we are in transition, which is a great opportunity to define what the new normal will look like. Unfortunately, even though we hope that we are in pandemic in a sprint, but it's actually a marathon. And for me, realizing that we are in it for a long haul was a game changer, because I felt like my life is on pause and I'm losing, and I'm robbed of many great experiences. And in fact, when you realize that it will take longer, now you can think differently and see opportunities that emerge with that. And one of the big ones is, of course, digitalization across sectors. I'm really excited about it, not only because I work in the AI. Before COVID, I think internet, phones, etc., were maybe still perceived with that they may disconnect people, and there was fear of losing jobs because of digitalization, losing skills even. And now that same technology has interestingly become a key enabler for overcoming challenges. So we realized that geographic location also isn't an absolute necessity. We can connect and be inclusive of everyone, regardless of where we live. Big changes I'm observing also at work in the economic structure. Personally, I'm lucky because I work in the field where the industry is now blooming rather than other industries that are more impacted. As a result of COVID, for instance, we developed a use case how to help breast screening programs to deal with COVID-induced backlogs. And I think because of tech being so omnipresent in our life, I think it made us resilient to find ways to adapt quicker. And what is very important here is also that we now collaborate with more senior partners to find direction how to implement that. So again, inclusion and collaboration. I feel extremely excited. However, I think I've never imagined that I can work for top companies from anywhere in the world. I don't feel destined anymore to need to live in cities to make the most of my career. And I think it's a great change to realize that. And similar in other sectors, I think the opportunities are also in education systems. We know that ways of teaching in information dense and technology-rich environments are calling for change in curriculums. And consequently, it's an opportunity for young generation to step in and also then, make us more resilient for the future. Maybe in terms of what I would like to see going forward is absolutely keeping this momentum that technology is gaining through pandemic and further showcase that the technology is not bad if developed well and used correctly. I think it can be a great accelerator for young tech-savvy generation to become key solution architects of the new norms. So in terms of COVID crisis, we all agree that resilience is very important. I think in addition to what my colleague State Secretary Kacin said earlier, I think also the greatest predictor of resilience will be also collaboration and cohesiveness. I really would like to see that we are not looking at the world black and white anymore. I would like to see more blurred line between the old and new. Like I was referring, I would like to create these hybrids, generational hybrids, of course, bringing young skills with experience of the senior, as well as technology-wise. There is many hybrids that are possible. I would like to create more diverse and inclusive environments. And I think, again, COVID is teaching us how to do that. So let's use this opportunity. And another learning for me during COVID was that during work from home, I think there was an increase in importance of well-being at the personal level as well as professional. And for instance, our company and many companies I know of, they're offering well-being programs and access to therapists. I think this is another aspect that we need to consider when building more resilient futures. In conclusion, I think we can't avoid pitfalls. We don't know how long COVID will last. And I thought I will conclude with a thought from Darwin, who said that it's not the most intellectual species who survive. It's also not the strongest ones, but it's the species that best adapt quickly to the changing environment. And I think we should use this era at the moment to define as a defining milestone in our development, personally, individually, so nationally, as well as globally. So let's challenge our old and new ways of living, build on our resilience and better future.
Bojana, thank you very much. I think it was very inspiring. And listening to Jelko and yourself, I feel very grateful to those like Jelko building our independent country, that we can live really in the independent country, and being very proud of a young generation as yourself, Bojana, to do such a great job and representing Slovenia here also in this country. I already see some questions, and but I also have some guests that I would like to hear from them. One of them is Mr. Keith Miles, and I hope that he will share briefly some thoughts with us. Keith was first president of the British Slovene Society and is a long friend of Slovenia and supporter of Slovenian independence here in the United Kingdom. So Keith, maybe very briefly few words, and then we will give floor to the next. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. If I may be a little nostalgic at this moment, seeing Jelko there, it really takes me back 30 years, because and he can hide his blushes if he likes at this moment, but from my perspective as the representative here in the UK, and of course the UK is a media centre for the world, it was very important that the communication that came from Ljubljana was clear, honest, straightforward. And Jelko, being the Minister of Information at that time, represented such a contrast to what was coming out of Belgrade, which seemed old-fashioned, hardly spoke any English, very late with the news, and so on. And also Jelko, I think he organized young people. I mean, look, he looks young now. Can you imagine how he looked 30 years ago? But young people like Matija Šinkovec would appear on the TV here. And Slovenia looked like a young, thrusting, modern country. And that was really important in getting the message across. So if I'm allowed that little piece of nostalgia. As regards where Slovenia has come from and where it's going to, one of the things that was striking in the comparison to Belgrade is so many Slovenes spoke English, and it was clear that they were of high education background. And that quality of education seems to me to well, we took advantage of it. As you see, Bojana, we attracted these young people to come and work here in the UK. And although they might like to go back, we would like them to stay here because they're so valuable to us. But that is a challenge for the resilience of Slovenia as a nation, to get the young experts, very experienced people to go back into an economy that prefers actually older people in some of the institutions. So it is a challenge for Slovenia to get these young people. And there are brilliant people, I mean, brilliant mathematicians that went to Trinity College, Cambridge, for example. There's a young Slovene, I can't remember his name, is it the Crick Institute. I mean, that's #1 in the world, and to run a department there is absolutely amazing. And he sits next door to a Nobel Prize winner. So getting that message across and showing that's what Slovenes are capable of is very important for the future. And it's also getting the message of what Slovenia is. I suppose the biggest challenge when I was the representative was explaining what Slovenia was, where it was, who it was, what its history was, and so on. And it's still a necessity, I think, for Slovenia in the world to be known. And I see Matija there. I know that when he was ambassador here, I would say that he probably saw that as his #1 target, to be seen, wherever, popping up everywhere that he could find and say, hello, I'm from Slovenia. Where's that? And that's still important. So Simona, you're coming behind some very successful ambassadors here. And just to finish very quickly to show you how difficult it was. Of course, I was trying to meet as many people at the top as I could and tell them about Slovenia. And I was in 10 Downing Street meeting John Major. And I was introduced to him as, this is Keith who represents Slovenia. And John Major said, oh, yes, I've been to Slovenia. I said, no, excuse me, no, I don't think you have. Yes, I've been to Slovenia. Excuse me, Prime Minister, I don't think you have. Yes, so we got to the third time, and I didn't think I should interrupt the Prime Minister anymore. So I said, where? He said, Bratislava. So I told you the problem that we all face. So I then changed the subject and we talked about football. But young people are the future of the country. They identify well with the country. You must try and get them to come back sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. And we are still struggling to explain and that Slovenia and Slovakia are two different countries. But I always say that we are the only country having love in our name. So you cannot spell Slovenia without love. Let me also give the floor to a dear friend that is with us, not Slovenian, but also somebody who represents the country that is celebrating the 30th anniversary of statehood also this year. It's the ambassador of Georgia to the United Kingdom. Sophie Katsarava is a dear friend. She used to be a politician, a parliamentarian, also chairwoman of Georgian Foreign Relations Committee. And Sophie, what you've heard today about the Slovenian path to its 30th anniversary, how you can compare briefly with Georgian and how you are building your resilient nation?
Dear Simona, thank you very much for this very interesting event and discussion. And let me wholeheartedly wish you and Slovenia happy 30th anniversary. And it's my pleasure to be part of this event today. Well, this year, Georgia too marks 30th anniversary since regaining independence along with other countries. And it's a momentous year in a way for us, for all of us, to reflect on those 3 decades, witnessing challenges and progress and a lot of achievements to be proud of. The topic that today's event is addressing is about resilience, which perhaps as never before is relevant and significant considering the impacts and challenges that the pandemic imposed on each and every nation. So bouncing back, or rather bouncing forwards, might be the key objective and the word of our nations, particularly now. So let me very briefly share the perspective of Georgia, given the importance of the topic this year. Once Georgia regained its independence in the early 90s after decades of Soviet occupation, independence was followed by a long period of turbulence, severe civil confrontation, a devastating social economic crisis, lost territories, and the waves of refugees in our own country. And Georgia was damaged, torn apart, and steeped in corruption. So where Georgia is today now, today Georgia transformed itself as a democratic country with free society underpinned by freedom of speech, free media, a competitive, supportive free business environment, and the free civil society. We today enjoy association agreement with the European Union, as well as the CFTA and visa-free travel with the EU, and our cooperation with NATO is hugely important. And it is no secret that Georgia has come on leaps and bounds and is is ready for membership. We just have to wait for a political decision, which we hope the decision will be taken soon. We widen and deepen our relationships with our major international partners, the UK, the European Union, the United States, which will grow our international trade and continue our path to more economic development. And we peacefully want to regain our territories and remain resilient against the security challenge that occupation of our territories has brought. I have heard lots of very interesting points today by the speakers, and those really what we heard was really inspiring. And what I would like to echo perhaps is that turning every challenge into opportunities and learning lessons and building strong institutions and investing in younger generations makes us more resilient against increasing global developments. And one key lesson that all of us have learned, I guess, is consolidation and unity and strong international partnership against emerging security threats. And the pandemic, of course, which has had such an impact on all countries. We have many such examples of success stories, which we should continue to capitalize on. Let me once again wish you and the people of Slovenia happy 30th anniversary and successful upcoming EU presidency. So once again, big thank you, Simona. When we arrived in the UK, it was not an easy period, but I think, and that was also mentioned, and it's a huge honor for me, for you, for all of us to represent our countries in the United Kingdom. But I think our personal experiences and examples also show that we adapt very quickly, we become creative, and we move on. And I think that's also one of the individual examples, if you like, of resilience. So happy anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie, very much to you too. I gathered some questions here. I have some for State Secretary Kacin, from Marcus and Steve. I have also some for Bojana, but let me start with one friend that is with us too and is also ready to share some of his thoughts with us, Lord German. Mike German is the president of the All Parties Parliamentary Friendship Group in the British Parliament. So we are really happy to have him with us. Lord German, please.
Well, thank you very much, Simona, and happy anniversary to everybody. It is great to see a nation growing so strongly over the last 30 years. You know, one of the things that those of us who come from a very old established country can learn from new countries is that there's a sense of vibrancy. And I think Bojana and others have talked about the young being the you know, the future of our country, and the young people being the future for Slovenia. And as someone at the other end of the spectrum, and it was interesting, of course, that you had Jelko, of course, who was there at the beginning, and now Bojana is looking to the future. And my question, which I'd like to pose to both of you, is if you were to look at the 40th anniversary of independence, what would be different in Slovenia? How would it appear to us as from the outside? And just for the sake of my satisfaction about young versus old and so on, how would you describe the partnership, Bojana, which you described as being the bridge between older and younger people? How important is that, and how would you attempt to achieve that? But the one thing about, and I started my full-time political life in a brand new national parliament here in the United Kingdom, in Wales, and we had an open door as we walked in to our parliament, and nothing had been determined beforehand. Well, people had tried to, but it was our decision what we did. It was a brand new facing opportunity. And I suppose I'd like to hear as well what those opportunities were that you saw right at the beginning, and how they have developed, and how they will look now in 10 years' time as you come to your 40th anniversary. So a lot of questions there, but it really is a very exciting time for you. And it's, you know, we have such a wonderful country and wonderful people and such a great spirit that you thoroughly deserve your 30th anniversary and your 40th and your 50th and everything else that will follow on from the future. So well done and congratulations. And I hope you might be able to answer my questions when you have a moment.
Thank you, Lord German. Maybe I will give the floor to Bojana, Jelko, if you agree, and then to you, and then we will collect two more questions from Marcus and Steve. And hopefully we'll still have time for some others. Bojana?
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Mike, for great questions. I think where I would like to see Slovenia at the 40th anniversary is probably, first of all, myself calling from Slovenia. That's the first change. Second of all, I would like to expand our efforts at the VTIS Association. I'm a very passionate volunteer there to ensure to breach. We don't call it brain drain. We rather see it as a exchange of knowledge. So I'm really passionate about ensuring that we don't lose any expertise from Slovenia, but rather really build this bridge that the knowledge can come back to Slovenia, either by physically dragging people back or in other ways of collaboration. And I truly see that in the next 10 years, we have a lot to do there. And this is where I would like to see us in 10 years, being at the forefront of digitalization, of course, because it's my field and I can bring a lot of the expertise from here. Yeah, this is about the 10 years vision. And about the partnerships between older and younger generations, I would fit it also into this 10 years mission. I think we have to do quite a lot in terms of this collaboration. And I think in the UK, I've experienced quite some good examples of collaborations. For instance, as a country in the UK, they have a lot of mechanisms at the national level that actually secure funding even that supports SMEs, which are small and medium enterprise companies, which usually sustain from are built up from young generations, and they ensure funding that comes back to NHS, for instance, to develop more digital and resilient healthcare systems. So this is one way how I see this partnership could work well, because when a young company receives funding, can then bring it to a more senior groups in the hospitals and do something meaningful together. Another way is really just at the personal level. I really respect senior people. They bring a lot of experience. Usually they can steer and guide. They are sometimes at the decision-making positions. And it's really important to ensure that we know what is required for the decisions so we can build stepstones to get there. And this is where the more experienced people can really bring a lot of value. In my personal experience, in my workplace, it's a necessity to work with senior and more experienced people, because otherwise with the artificial intelligence, you wouldn't get far. You really need to bring everyone on the journey when you're making great changes. So I hope I answered the questions.
Jelko.
Well, let me start by thanking Keith Mars for his excellent job when we were looking for the pioneers to be loudspeakers for the country, which was practically invisible at that time. And it is a long path behind all of us. And 30 years it passed like that. But as you know, in a month's time, we will start the second chairmanship presidency in office in the European Union. And this is for a country with 2 million of inhabitants, an enormous challenge and demand. But I believe that I will connect it with what is going to happen in 10 years when we will celebrate 40th anniversary. I simply believe that we will be able to contribute much more to the awareness that there are parts of Europe which are already forgotten, and they are our direct neighborhood. Sophie was talking about her country, but we have in our neighborhood Western Balkan countries, and I hope that in the next 10 years we will be able to bring into the EU at least 1 or 2 countries from the Western Balkan. That would be that necessary spirit which we miss today that much. But in the future, we have to overcome this selfish position when we are dealing mostly with ourselves. If you want to be a player, not just an observer, we have to invest in the future of those who are forgotten for decades and who miss their opportunities. This is solidarity, which we need if we as a continent want to be more influential around the globe. On the other hand, in 10 years, China will grow up and will develop and will be much more influential. That's why we in the continent, not just on the continent, but also on the island, We have to cooperate much more to be competitive and to find our opportunity for the future. And again, younger generation will have to take over all these efforts and these ambitions. And on the other hand, I would like to thank you to Lord German as well for his, how to say, extremely important task, promoting friendship between the United Kingdom and Slovenia. This is what we need. Pandemic somehow make us, how to say, long time no see. It was impossible to go across the channel for many Slovenes who were frequent flyers there. Situation is improving step by step, but as long as we do not reactivate flights between United Kingdom and Slovenia on a not just weekly basis, but on a daily basis, we will be handicapped. And this is what we have to invest in. People have to be connected. We need this digital pass in the pandemic period that will allow us to travel around and to somehow compensate what we lost in this 1.5 years since the virus appeared, first in Italy, but then all around the Europe, in the United Kingdom and in Slovenia.
Jelko, thank you. I can tell you that it's still a struggle coming home from London. We still don't have a direct flights, and some countries are closing for the UK right now because of the Indian variant. But we all are optimistic and very much looking forward in the future, and that the vaccination will help and we'll be able to travel again and meet again and have these meetings like tonight in person. But I will now give the floor to Marcus. He wants to ask a question. Marcus is also a member of a British Slovene Society.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for very interesting talks. I have a question for Mr. Kacin. You were right in the middle of things in the information war during the 10-day war, and Keith referred to this, how you were successful about that. Now Slovenia is going to, for the second time, preside the European Council. Personally, I found during the first time Slovenia was presiding, the profile of your country was too low. I feel that Slovenia has a lot to bring to the table. So I'm just wondering, do you see any possibilities for doing something more higher profile and having a bigger impact this time round?
Jelko, if you would allow, we would take another question that is for you too, from Steve, who is, Steve is learning Slovenian, so I don't know whether he will ask you in Slovenian or in English, but Steve, please.
Please do so.
Okay, I will ask in English, but dober večer, and thank you to the State Secretary Kacin and also to Bojana Selinšek for your presentations. My question, I'll be very brief. It's that you presented a very confident and compelling story of Slovenia's resilience, certainly in its foundation and its modern guise as an independent republic, and it showed itself to be very adept at joining international institutions and developing its own national institutions. But clearly, for success carries with it always the risk of complacency. And my question to you would be, where do you see the principal vulnerabilities, if they exist, that could undermine the resilience of the country in the period ahead? Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions? Okay. So concerning the first question, I would like to respond on the way that we are trying our very best to organize some events during our presidency. The very first one will be connected with what I have already mentioned, Western Balkan countries. We need more focus on this area. There is a confrontation about the influence, concerning the influence between China on one hand and Russia. And as long as we do not pay enough attention to this region, we will have problems. One will be a brain drain, young generation will leave the countries, and then we have demographic problems, ethnic cleansings, and all these kind of problems which we suffered in previous decades. On the other hand, I believe that we are not able to listen enough to each other. That's why my Prime Minister is now dealing with an idea to organize a conference between EU and Indonesia. This is the biggest democracy with a Muslim religion, which really have to be part of a solution. And we have to pay attention on their efforts. That's why I believe that we need to overcome the confrontation of different civilizations. We simply have to deal with all these challenges for the future together. And this is something what we cannot forget. When on one hand, there is a country in the office of presidency with 2 million of inhabitants, and on the other hand, we have the biggest Muslim country on the globe, which we would like to assist in overbridging this lack of knowledge on each other. I believe that this is the right moment. The saga about the mountain and the Muhammad who will move where. Well, we simply believe that we are small enough that we have to be faster. We need to find our niche, and I believe that for the half a year of presidency, when all the meeting of leaders will be about the virus and vaccine and vaccinations, we at the same time have to find other niches. And I have mentioned just two of them.
Jelko, thank you very much. I saw Paul is also asking a question, a short one to both of you. But if Paul would like to come in, I would give the floor to him. Paul is a dear friend of Slovenia, a former president of the friendship group with Slovenia, but still our friend. And Paul, if you would like to ask questions yourself, please.
Okay, thank you, Simona. Can you hear me? Okay, Jelko, congratulations on your longevity. You know what I mean. You've been around a very long time, so that's one sign of stability. And congratulations, Bojana, on all the work you're doing. I've just Googled your company. It looks fantastic. This is really about working with institutions and going it alone, Slovenian and UK relations. So to Jelko, I just wanted to ask you whether the UK's approach to the vaccine has affected Slovenian opinion of our country. And I hope the government doesn't start claiming, as it will, that the vaccine is a Brexit dividend. And to Bojana, do you, as a result of Britain being seen to go it alone, sometimes have to defend us to your friends back in Slovenia?
Jelko and then Bojana.
Well, let me start that I still regret that you left the European Union. Together we were stronger, we were bigger, we were more influential, and then this virus came, and there was enormous expectations. The number one vaccine in our perception was AstraZeneca, so we were all waiting for, and then it was late. Pfizer-BioNTech came first. And then when we talk about the capacity to deliver something on time, AstraZeneca didn't prove itself. So it was really harming itself by this incapability to produce, to deliver on time without this necessary logistic. This was, I don't want to say a complete failure, but this vaccine today is less sexy as it was at the early beginning. All of us, we expected that Vector's vaccine will be a solution for the problem. And then it came out in a month or two that even those people of older generations moved immediately to mRNA vaccines. And this was a clear proof how flexible we are and how fast we can adapt on a new achievement, on the new techniques. new technologies. And this is really something what was unbelievable to think about 1.5 years ago when the virus appeared. In the meantime, for the time being, we have, let's say, 4 operative vaccines. Some of the others are expected in a near future or in a longer future, but we simply have to do it together. Of course, what Bojana was telling at the beginning, yes, there are experts who can always contribute and can be a part of a solution, can be a part of international teams, and I'm so proud on this young generation, what are they doing together. But together we can do much more, we can do faster, we can do more effective, and we have to create these networks among young people to be able to compete with China and all the others who will come with their projects in the future. So if we talk about the virus, there will be mutations. And I believe that with the lessons learned so far, we will be able to react much faster, much more effective. And I'm a great optimist concerning about the near future in these next 2 years. So we are not just dreaming, we are now organizing, we are deciding in which directions we will invest our common money to support developments and productions of new vaccines that will be more effective, that we will be safer on one hand, and on the other hand, that we will be able to produce vaccine in much bigger quantities to assist, as I said, to the other continents, to vaccinate enough people to stop mutations in the early stage, in the area when they will appear, and that all the globe will be in much safer position. And on the other hand, what we proved concerning pharmaceutical, this is a proof that whenever there is enough energy to penetrate, to cooperate, and to define the final objective, we will be able to deliver much more and much faster. So this is the lesson that we have to take in our mind, and to start create the new normal, the new reality, with much bigger aspirations and ambitions, together in cooperation and, first of all, in coordination.
Thank you very much, Jelko. Bojana, do you have to defend Britain to your friends in Slovenia?
If this is in terms of Brexit, yes, there were of course a couple of questions. I didn't need to defend it, but I think everyone really didn't want to leave the EU, at least from the surroundings that I live in. So it was sometimes really hard to understand why it happened. And of course, it's a lot of propaganda and media that was around it. But I didn't have much to defend. The decisions were made, and there is not much more that I could do. In terms of vaccination, I don't need to defend either. I think in Slovenia, there is a little bit of resistance, I think, against vaccinations, unfortunately. So I guess my friends don't care so much what Britain is doing in that regard.
Well, I would like to wrap it up with maybe just some last thought. If Her Majesty Ambassadors Tiffany Sadler in Ljubljana is willing to join us and say a few words whether she and how she defends the UK in Slovenia, and where she sees Slovenia in a few years' time now after 8 months of experience serving in Ljubljana. Tiffany, if you can join us.
Yes. Can you hear me, Simona?
We can.
Fantastic. I will attempt to switch my video on as well. You will have to forgive me, everyone. I had my second jab of AstraZeneca, being patriotic, yesterday, so I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. But thank you, Simona, for an absolutely fantastic event. It's been truly inspiring to hear everyone, to hear you, Bojana, to hear you, State Secretary, to hear all the speakers. It's certainly improved my knowledge of the history of Slovenia and what you have delivered and what you have become over the past 30 years. In terms of your question, having to defend the UK, I don't think I have to. I think that we share so many values and so many interests. I have found my first 9 months in Slovenia an absolute joy, and made so many new friends and developed so many new interests. And here's to another 30 years, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And thanks to everybody joining us and participating. Slovenia is celebrating the 30th anniversary of statehood in 25th of June, so in a month time. And a few days after, we will take over for the second time the presidency of the Council of the European Union. But even before that, we will celebrate or mark the Slovenia-UK Friendship Day on the 10th of June. So there are plenty of opportunities to celebrate our cooperation and our future endeavors, like Tiffany said. I think that we have a lot in common, that we share same values, and that we are striving for the same prosperity and the same good. So I would like to thank you dearly to all also good wishes that we got in the chat. Maybe just to give the last sentence to both of the speakers, and then I will bid farewell, and we'll look forward to have you joining us in September, when we will host another round of the talks, probably, hopefully in person. But just to have a last sentence, Jelko, and then Bojana.
Well, Simona, thank you very much, first of all, to you for organizing this event. It was much more than I expected. And I believe that this spirit among us is very helpful and fruitful after a long period of isolation in the period of pandemic. I believe that this positive energy is desperately needed to fill up our batteries and to do much more in the rest of the year. Summer is coming in. The number of infected in Slovenia is going down very fast. And I believe that we will vaccinate enough part, big enough part of our population that we will be in a much safer position in autumn. In a day or two, I expect that EMA will issue a certificate for Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine to start vaccinate older than 12 years, what means that after Canada and United States, we will be able to protect our younger generation, and that the autumn concerning the traditional school and participating the education in the school, not on a long distance, will be something new normal in the autumn. So this is what we have to struggle for in this period. And again, it was a privilege for me. It was 1 hour spent in an excellent atmosphere. And again, thank you, to Bojana, and all dear friends who participated in this exchange of views, not just about past. Let's talk about future. Let's dream the future, because future will be tomorrow, today. Let's do it together.
Thank you, Jelko. Bojana.
I can only echo Mr. Kacin's words. All I would say is, tonight this is a proof that we can be socially close even though we are physically apart. And I hope you feel the sense of this community that I feel it definitely. And I'm, like I said, I'm just hoping that we will stay curious and build on these hybrids and learnings that the COVID pandemic is offering us. So to encourage and emphasize the collaboration between generations, to develop technologies to become more digital. And I'm really looking forward to all of these opportunities. So thank you very much for organizing this event. It has been my pleasure. And I hope when we next time see each other, it will be in person, because we should emphasize that even though technology is great, I think the the importance of physical communication, we can't deny. So thank you.
Well, I have to close up with just one message from my side, that I have a very energetic young team here with me in the United Kingdom representing Slovenia. So I can assure you all that we are full of energy, also hosting this kind of events in the future, boosting our friendship and our cooperation. And I would wholeheartedly invite you all to join us in the autumn. Hopefully, we will be on the green list, the United Kingdom green list. As Jelko said, the numbers are going down in Slovenia. So many of you that are in Slovenia right now will be able to travel to the United Kingdom. So dear friends, that was our second event in the series of 30 years of Slovenian independence. Thank you for being with us this hour, and I'm looking forward to see you in September or October when we will host our next session. Thank you very much and good night. Lahko noč.
Lahko noč.